today, I feel like is one of the more important discussions that we're going to have specific to insuring yourself, life insurance. And we have a subject matter expert with us today, Valerie Watt. Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for your invite and looking forward to sharing with your community more about life insurance.
Yes. So the community is really um, interesting because it's mostly friends, family, but specifically the African American community is who I'm targeting.
Okay.
And I really just want people to understand the most important elements of life insurance. And I know that you'll be able to give us some tips just to kind of get people in the right space. So, what would you say are the most important things to know? And then tell us a little bit more about what you do in terms of your insurance practice.
Okay, thank you. So I'm an independent insurance broker, which means that as opposed to working for one particular company, I work for you. I work for my clients, meaning that because I'm not working for a company, I'm able to look at clients' individual situations, budget, health, all the different factors that we look at in determining life insurance rates. And I'm able to go to different companies and look at their rates. So it's definitely not a one size fit all, but I like to say that I work for you. I don't work for the company, and my job is to make sure that I find the best policy for you, given your personal situation. It's not a one size fit all, and that's important to me, is that you're with someone who can offer different policies and programs.
Yeah,
Uh,
so that's really interesting that you're able to go to different companies
yeah.
and then also kind of do some shopping around on someone's behalf, because I don't know if most people realize that that's even an option. So the key word that you said is independent insurance, because you are able to kind of scan the environment to find out what works best for people. Because I hear a lot of people say, I don't even know what would work best for me. So what would you advise those people who are kind of looking for the best plan for them?
What I would say is that I know people, they look for an answer, what's best, whole or term, and
Mm.
just so to make sure that we understand the different policies. A term policy, I also use the word temporary. When you think of term policies, they're temporary policies, meaning that they're generally for a particular time period, 10, 20, 30 years. And they're normally less expensive, but they end. So
Mm.
that's a particular policy. And I'm not the type of broker who says, don't buy term. There are reasons for term and there are reasons for permanent. For term policy, if you're a younger family, you have kids, you have a mortgage, yes, you need that income protection should something happen to you and you have younger children and you want them to stay in their house, as opposed to someone who's, you can be younger and get a whole life policy, but it's just like if you're older, you pay for your mortgage, you have other reasons for life insurance. But
Mhm.
so that's important. Permanent insurance, the rate stays the same. You get in, it's locked in, and it grows. Some plans grow more than others. As it relates to permanent policies, there's also index universal life policies, which have a greater, um, I guess, percentage of gains because it kind of mimics one of the indexes. I don't want to get into too much into the weeds there, but I think what's important about this conversation is that within the Black community, these type of policies where we weren't told about them. I don't know if you wanted me to go into the history a little bit of kind of how we got here, but I will tell you that Black Americans, we have insurance, actually more than whites. The issue with our community is we're underinsured.
Mm. Okay.
So
Can you say more about that? That is interesting.
yes, yes. So well, I would tell you, after the Civil War, just like everything, there are disparities, right? With housing, with everything. Well, there are disparities with insurance too. After the Civil War, and this practice continued up until the 60s, definitely. So imagine after the Civil War, companies, you're a slave if your lineage, not every Black person was a slave, but if that's your lineage, um, they the only policies offered to you were burial policies,
Okay.
and they were cheaper, yes, but the person passes away and there's nothing left because it just covers your burial. So although we believe as a community in life insurance, we're underinsured. And what I will tell you is that those particular insurance companies at that time, they wouldn't tell us we weren't even eligible for the other type of insurance policies because they wouldn't, our mobility rate was higher to them because we were slaves.
Wow.
So either we were denied coverage or it was so expensive we couldn't afford it. Thank goodness that changed, just like everything else changed, right? The 60s and all that.
Wow.
So now it's kind of like catching up and kind of re-educating the community about the different uses of life insurance that we didn't know about. And our intent is to leave a legacy, but we can't if we only have a certain amount of coverage, and that's it. Another, I guess, concern with the Black community is after the burial policy, then we heard about term life insurance. Issue with that I face when I talk to especially some of our seniors is that yes, they had a policy, someone sold them a policy, but it was a term policy. They bought the policy, let's say in their 30s. 30 years later, they're in their 60s or in their 70s. That policy is gone. So what happens? Although it was a really cheap rate when they purchased it over 30 years ago, now they have to get qualified, go through underwriting at 70. So
Oh,
imagine,
wow.
so a lot of them they can't afford it. So when I hear people tell me about their parents or their grandparents, they say, oh, well, they had a policy, but they let it lapse. Well, that's why they let it lapse. They couldn't afford it. Because after that term, the price skyrocketed, as opposed to permanent, synonymous with whole life policies. Whole life policies, there's a reason to have those. When you get in, then it stays with you until 100 or what have you. And it's the same rate. So, and it also earns some interest. Now, when it comes to permanent policies, I think I mentioned the IULs, where you could use that policy for retirement income. You can borrow against it, cash value. So there's different policies that we weren't aware of also with our children. It's important to, if you can't get insurance as young as possible, even parents. I know that when we think about insuring our children, we're like, okay, no, I don't want to, I don't want to do that because I don't want to think about that. But this is
Right.
life. But we have to look at the glass half full and understand that that's all we've been taught about life insurance, the death benefit. There's more to life insurance than a death benefit. A lot of other communities, they've used life insurance products like IULs to pay for their children's college. It's called the $1 Million Baby process, where you get someone a baby and you get them in a whole life process, IUL or what have you, let it grow and they pull out of it for college. Happens all the time. I've written several policies for my community. So I can go on and on about that. I'm really passionate about it. And one of the reasons why I got into the industry, I think you asked me about my background, in corporate America for over 20 years. And wasn't passionate about that. Then I moved to California. I was in Michigan, moved back home to California and COVID hit, right? And I'm seeing all these GoFundMe pages and it just tugged at my
Mhm.
heart. And I'm like,
Mhm.
this, why is this? And that just got me into the industry. Like, okay, this is my purpose. This is my why. Just kind of seeing what happened. People, bad enough you're dealing with the COVID and all that. Then you got to deal with the death, and then they don't have life insurance. You got to you can't grieve properly because you're worried about paying the bills. So, and I've had some personal experience with that as well. My aunt, I had two deaths in July. One was my aunt. I was able to get her approved for insurance. couple months before she passed away. Okay. Second example, my ex-husband. I didn't have any control over this one. He didn't have insurance. He passed away in July as well. Imagine the grieving that his family had to go through because they were doing GoFundMes, asking the church for money. I saw this. And also when he passed away, guess what? He didn't have a policy for his daughter. So my daughter didn't have anything because he didn't have a policy. So it's just education of the community, because it's not about, when we think about purchasing insurance, don't think of it as like, it's just for you, it's for your beneficiaries, it's for the people who leave
Absolutely.
behind, because they're the ones who can't properly grieve because they're trying to, sell chicken dinners and, and do GoFundMe page. I mean, I'm not trying to, but it's real. I
Right.
mean, that's
Yeah,
what happened. You saw it, right? And you
I
told me
did.
about being affected by seeing all those GoFundMe pages. So it doesn't have to be. Insurance is much more affordable than people think.